Abdul, his mother's frail voice echoed from the corner of their small mud hut, trembling with both pain and longing. Please help me with my crutches, I need to use the bathroom.
But Abdul, lounging lazily under the mango tree, pretended not to hear. His headphones blasted music as he sipped cold water from a sachet, oblivious to his mother's suffering. Inside, his crippled mother, Mama, struggled to drag herself across the dusty floor, tears streaming down her face. Abdul didn't care anymore. His heart had long since grown immune to her pain. He didn't just hate her, he resented her very existence. Mama had been paralyzed from the waist down 10 years ago after a tragic accident. She had always tried her best to care for him, selling vegetables at the village market, enduring insults and stares just to ensure he had food. But no matter what she did, it was never enough for Abdul. To him, she was a disgrace, a burden. He wished she would just disappear. That night, Mama cooked dinner over her small firewood stove, weak arms stirring the pot with difficulty. The smell of egusi and smoked fish filled the air. She knew Abdul would refuse to eat, but she still cooked, hoping that maybe, just maybe, he'd change. But Abdul had been waiting for this moment. He slipped into the kitchen as soon as she retreated to her room. Standing over the steaming pot, he smirked. He couldn't even stomach the sight of the food she made for him anymore. With a wicked grin, he urinated into the soup, tainting it with his contempt. Later that night, Mama served herself a small bowl of soup, and as the bitter taste hit her tongue, her heart sank. Something was wrong. She looked at the pot, then at Abdul, who sat in his usual spot, scrolling through his phone. The next morning, Mama calmly asked, "Abdul, did you do anything to the soup last night?" Abdul didn't even look up. "What if I did?" he replied coldly. Ma's heart shattered, but she said nothing. She clasped her hands and prayed silently, asking God to touch his heart, to soften the hard shell around it. Days turned to weeks, and Abdul's cruelty only deepened. Whenever Mama crawled outside to sit in the shade, the villagers whispered pitying words. "Poor woman, her own son doesn't even respect her." One Sunday, Mama decided to go to church. It had been years, but she felt a strong urge to pray. She begged Abdul to help her get dressed, to push her to church. But he scoffed. "You want me to push you to church so people can laugh at me? Never." Mama didn't argue. Slowly, painfully, she crawled out of the house, dragging herself down the dusty road. Neighbors stood in shock as they watched her crawl, sweat dripping down her face, hands caked with dirt. Inside the church, Mama prayed fervently. Her voice shook as she cried out to God, "Father, I don't know what to do anymore. Please, touch my son's heart. Don't let him destroy his life." Back at home, Abdul riffled through his belongings, searching for hidden money. "This woman must have something stashed away," he grumbled. Suddenly, his hand brushed against an old photograph of younger Mama, smiling brightly, holding a baby. It was a photo of her holding him as a baby. For a moment, something stirred inside him, a strange flicker of a long-buried memory, but he quickly shoved it aside. "What's the point of looking at the past?" he muttered, tossing the picture away. That night, Mama returned from church to find her room in disarray. She didn't say a word. She simply gathered her things and sat quietly in her corner, her heart breaking. Later, Abdul had a vivid dream. He was in a dark forest, surrounded by whispering voices. "Why do you hate your mother?" they asked. "Do you not know what she sacrificed for you?" In the dream, Abdul saw a vision of his mother from years ago running to save him from a speeding car. The moment she pushed him out of harm's way, the car struck her, taking her legs. Abdul woke up, heart pounding, drenched in sweat. The next day, Mama confronted him, her voice steady but full of pain. "Abdul, why do you hate me so much? What did I do to deserve this?" He rolled his eyes, dismissing her. "You're a burden. Every time people see me, they ask, 'Is that not the son of the crippled woman?' I'm tired of the shame." Ma's heart shattered. She wanted to tell him the truth, that it was because of him, because she had sacrificed her legs to save him from that car, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she crawled back to her corner, silently weeping. That night, a loud knock came at the door. Abdul opened it, annoyed. Standing there was a man in white, his face glowing eerily in the moonlight. "You have despised the one who gave you life," the man said. "Now, you will face the truth." Before Abdul could react, the man stepped inside, pointing at Mama, who trembled in her corner. "Tell him the truth," the man commanded. With shaking hands and a trembling voice, Mama finally spoke. Abdul. "I have never told you this because I didn't want to burden you, but since you hate me so much, you deserve to know the truth." Abdul's brows furrowed. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Ma's voice cracked as she continued. 10 years ago, we were walking home from the market. You were just a little boy, running ahead of me, as always. A car came speeding toward us. I shouted for you to stop, but you didn't listen. I threw myself in front of that car to push you out of harm's way. I didn't think twice. I just wanted to save you." Abdul's legs felt like they were giving out from under him. Mama lifted her worn dress, revealing deep disfigured scars on her legs. Her constant reminder of the day she saved his life. "This is why I can no longer walk. This is why I crawl. Abdul, I sacrificed my legs for you. And if I could go back, I'd do it again, no matter how much you hate me now." The room went still. The man in white spoke once more. "Now you know the truth. What will you do with it?" Abdul couldn't respond. His mind reeled, his heart twisted in knots. Fear gripped him, and he pointed at his mother with shaking hands. You're behind this, aren't you? You've been doing charms to control me. That man was one of your juju people." Ma's eyes widened in shock. "Charms, juju? I would never. Abdul, trembling with rage, stormed out of the house, grabbing his belongings and slamming the door behind him. "I'm leaving. I can't stay in this house with you and your evil spirits." Ma's broken cries echoed behind him, but Abdul didn't turn back. The road ahead was dark, and his mind was in chaos. Abdul wandered far from home, trying to forget, trying to silence the guilt that was slowly gnawing at him. But the memory of that man in white, the truth Mama had shared, and his mother's sacrifices haunted him. Days later, exhausted and lost, Abdul found himself in a rundown building, sitting in the cold night. And as he closed his eyes, he heard it again. Abdul. Remember your mother. The voice, soft but insistent, tormented him. And that's when Musa, a kind stranger, found him. He took Abdul in, offering him food, shelter, and a chance to work. "You look like you could use a proper meal," Musa said. "Come with me. I'll give you work." And so, Abdul's life began anew. He worked hard, never thinking of his past. Years passed, and he grew into a strong, self-sufficient man. But as he gained wealth and status, the whispers of his past never stopped. One day, Musa confronted him. "Abdul, you've been hiding something. What is it?" With tears in his eyes, Abdul confessed everything. Musa's anger flared, but he didn't offer sympathy. "You've been living in comfort, while your mother, crippled and helpless, suffered alone. You'll go back, you'll face your past." The journey back to his village was agonizing, and when they arrived, the villagers gave him pitying stares. He led Musa to the remains of his mother's house. But the building was nothing but rubble. Mama was gone. She had died, waiting for him. Abdul's knees buckled, and he fell to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm sorry, Mama. I was wrong. I was blind to your love," the villagers whispered as he wept at her grave. Musa stood by, watching. Crying won't bring her back. You can only honor her memory by changing. Abdul stayed in the village, trying to make amends, donating to rebuild his mother's house, helping the community. But when he returned to the city, the guilt stayed with him. He sold his bus, started a charity for mothers in need, and named it after Mama. Every day, he prayed for her soul, hoping that, somehow, she could see the man he was trying to become. He had sacrificed, was a scar he would carry forever, a reminder of the price of pride, and the cost of neglecting those who love us most.